All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. The first month of the 2023 Major League Baseball season is almost in the books. And with that said, there are some things that have definitely stood out so far. You look at the Tampa Bay Rays and their refuse to lose attitude. The Rays are 23-6, and they have set the pace in the American League East. Pitching, as always, is once again key for the Rays, and then as is the red hot bat of Randy Arozarena. Now, the Rays already they have a 3.5 game lead over the Baltimore Orioles. Of course, Tampa Bay lost today, while Baltimore won, and then Tampa has a 4.5 game lead over the Toronto Blue Jays. But then you got both the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox, who are each 8 games behind Tampa Bay already. And of course, for the Yankees, the question is going to be when will they get it going? And I mean, right now, New York's 15-14. They just had a weekend to forget against the Texas Rangers as the Rangers has dominated the Yankees. There's no other way around it. But for me, the Yankees under manager Aaron Boone has basically been the same story. Either the Yankees start off strong and they stumble coming down the stretch, or they start off slow and they get hot coming down the stretch. And I think obviously that's going to be the case. Maybe the Yankees make a move at some point. They got to get some guys back healthy, most notably Aaron Judge. But it's one of those where the Yankees are definitely going to get things going. And I mean, they're 15-14. It won't take the Yankees that long. I think once the temperature in New York really heats up, I think so will the team overall of the Bronx Bombers. The Chicago White Sox, with a record of 8-21, they could flirt with losing 100 games for the first time since 2018. The White Sox, you just have to wonder if it was just a flash in the pan as far as them making the postseason a couple of years ago. They took a step back last year. A lot of that was blamed on veteran manager Tony La Russa. Well, guess what? Tony La Russa ain't there anymore. So at some point, there has to be somebody else within this organization who is going to take accountability. The first place Texas Rangers, and of course, the Rangers have not a lot of new personnel in place. Most notably, manager Bruce Bochy, and he's getting the best out of this team so far. The Rangers are in first place with a 2.5 game lead over the Astros, and they're doing that in spite of the fact that their big money guy, Jacob DeGrom, has been in and out of the lineup or the rotation rather. And honestly, at this point in the game, this is probably what Jacob DeGrom is going to be. We've seen it for the last couple of years with the New York Mets, where Jacob DeGrom just showed you in flashes how good he could be, but he's just been unable to stay healthy, and that is once again carried over to his brief time with the Texas Rangers. I think Degrom would be better served, and I've talked about this before, taking a little bit off of his pitches. You don't need to necessarily hit 100 consistently on the radar. Maybe bring it down to 94. Maybe learn how to locate a little bit better and preserve your arm because it typically seems to be the same injuries with Jacob DeGrom. The Seattle Mariners, will they pick up the pace? The Mariners are currently 12-16, and not having Robbie Ray in that rotation is going to hurt. You still got a solid youngster in George Kirby, and this lineup is definitely loaded. You got Julio Rodriguez in there, and of course, you picked up Teoscar Hernandez. So the Mariners will definitely pick up the pace. As currently they're right now, they're 5 games behind Texas in the American League West. On the National League side, first of all, in the National League East, the Atlanta Braves, they're once again in first place. They're looking good so far this season, and you have to wonder if another World Series run is in store for the Braves. Of course, they won it 2 years ago, won 101 games in the regular season last year, ran into a hot Phillies team in the NLDS as they lost to them in 4 games. But the Braves are once again loaded, and I think that they definitely are going to set the pace in the East. The New York Mets, they need to get healthy. And of course, the Mets right now, they're sitting at 15-12. They had a great West Coast trip, but they followed that by coming back home and stumbling, losing a series to the Washington Nationals. They only got one in against the Atlanta Braves, and it was a rain shortened loss on Friday night. the Mets are going to get Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer back real soon. I think that's definitely going to perk things up. And of course, just like it was leading into the season, the Mets definitely need another bat, but they still have a quality lineup. They just need a power bat, another power bat behind Pete Alonso. The Philadelphia Phillies, they're going to get healthy. Bryce Harper is expected to come back soon. And, that's going to be a big boost to this lineup, especially since they're not going to have the services of Reese Hoskins all year long. Break up the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not a lot of people saw this coming, but right now, through 29 games, the Pirates are 20-9, and that counts for the best record in the National League. You look at this Pirates team. Of course, Pittsburgh's one of those smaller market teams. They, have to destroy and rebuild at times, if you will. And this Pirates team, they're young and hungry, and they're coming and they're setting the pace in the Central. Milwaukee's a game and a half behind them. And of course, Milwaukee has one of the better pitching staffs in baseball. It just comes down to, just like I said at the start of the season, will the Brew Crew get enough pitching? The biggest surprise, of course, in the National League Central right now has to be the St. Louis Cardinals. And you just have to wonder what's going on with the Birds right now. Too much talent on this Cardinals team for them to be 10-19 at this point of the season. They're in last place in the National League Central all by their lonesome. They got to make up 2.5 games on the Cincinnati Reds just to get out of the basement there. Again, you look at Paul Goldschmidt, you look at Nolan Arenado, two MVP candidates last year. Of course, one of them won it. Uh, but nonetheless, you look at the talent in this lineup. You bring in Wilson Contreras. You look at the lineup, the talent rather, on this pitching staff as well. But at the end of the day, the Cardinals just ain't getting wins. You just have to wonder, will Oliver Marmol be able to turn things around for the Birds? The Los Angeles Dodgers have come back to the pack, and I did not expect the Dodgers to win 100 games again this season. Of course, last year they came out like gangbusters. They don't have the same talent and depth in this lineup that they did a year ago, but still, the Dodgers are going to be a very formidable team. At some point, they will get it going and pick up the pace. They're 16-13 now. They're tied with Arizona for first place in the National League West. But once again, I do feel the Dodgers, as the season progresses, will assert themselves. You look at the NL West as a whole, and who is going to seize control of this division? I talked about it. The Diamondbacks and Dodgers are currently tied for first. You got the San Diego Padres a game back. The San Francisco Giants are four back. And then, of course, the Colorado Rockies are bringing up the rear as they're already 7 games back. The Dodgers have the talent, as do the San Diego Padres. And I think both of these teams at some point over the summer will assert themselves and separate themselves from the remainder of that pack in the division. And speaking of the NL West, the Colorado Rockies have never lost 100 games in a season, but this 9-20 start this year could change that. You just look at the Rockies, and I don't know. I mean, Chris Bryant hasn't, he had the injury filled year last year. I do expect him to come on at some point. But the Rockies, plain and simple, the talent just is not there for this club right now. But on an individual note, you look after a slight step back last year, didn't have the batting average that he had previously in the year before when he was an MVP candidate. Vlad Jr. for the Toronto Blue Jays is once again looking like an MVP candidate. He's got that batting average back over 300. Vladdy is going to hit for power, and I expect him to have a big year this year for Toronto, who, even though they're in second place right now, is definitely going to be a team to look out for, and not only in the American League East, but in the American League as a whole. Shohei is ready to cash in, and we knew that coming into this season that Shohei Ohtani was going to have a big year for the Los Angeles Angels with his free agency looming. So far this year, he's batting 292 with 6 homers and 7 runs batted in, and he's also 4-0 as a starter. And I should change that number because Shohei launched a home run this afternoon in center field against the Milwaukee Brewers. But nonetheless, Shohei is going to have himself a big year. Garrett Cole is dialed in for the New York Yankees, and he is pitching like the ace that they expect him to be. 5-0 so far this season with a 1.11 earned run average. And the Cole train is definitely making things happen for the Yankees, which is why I think at some point their record will definitely improve. Josh Hader is back. And of course, the San Diego Padres are going to benefit from that already 9 saves. He's once again looking like the lights out guy that began his career with the Milwaukee Brewers before he was traded last year. 8 players already have at least 10 stolen bases as the expanded bases are helping, and you expected that to be a thing. Is the pitch clock working? And this has been a transition period for both pitchers and hitters and umpires alike as far as getting accustomed to the pitch clock. We've seen players get called for strike three just due to the fact that they weren't in the batter's box on time. We've seen pitchers be called for ball four just due to the fact that they weren't ready to deliver in time. So, it's a transition period this year for everybody involved in Major League Baseball, but this is a part of their mission to shorten game time. And we've seen it because we've seen some games already this year end in under 2 hours. The balanced schedule, of course, I've talked about this before. I'm not a fan of it. I hope that they don't stick with it. I just really would just love to see the decrease in interleague play, more of a focus not only on the teams in your division, but also the teams in your league, because these games are going to matter so much in the playoff standings. And I think it needs to be more of a focus on everybody in your league as opposed to both the American and national leagues. So, are there some teams that are ready to wave the white flag? And I definitely have my eyes on some teams. You look at the Kansas City Royals, they're already 7-22. It looks like another lost season for them. The Chicago White Sox, I'm definitely going to put them in that category. The Oakland A's, and of course, it's just a terrible situation going on out there in the Bay Area. I've talked about this before. The fans there do not deserve this, and I think the A's organization has not done right by them for a very long time, as this is a glorified minor league team, 6-23, and it is not going to get any better for the folks that follow this club. The Washington Nationals, they're definitely in rebuild mode. They're 10-17. Excuse me, they've been competitive, but at some point I do expect them to taper off. And then the Colorado Rockies, I've talked about them already. They're 9-20, and I just don't see good things happening in Denver for this club this year. But after the teams who have had the slow start so far, which ones are going to be able to turn it around? I've talked about the New York Yankees. I definitely think they will get it going. The Cleveland Guardians in the Central, I still feel that the Guardians are the most talented team in this division. They're 13-15 so far. They lost their last two. They have a 3.5 game deficit to make up on the on first place Minnesota Twins. But I definitely feel that Cleveland will get it going. You look at the AL West with both the Houston Astros and Seattle Mariners, and of course, both of these clubs made the playoffs last year, and of course, the Astros are the defending champs. Houston's 14-13 right now. They're 2.5 back of Texas. Seattle is 12-16. They're 5 behind Texas. And both of these teams are immensely talented. Even though the Astros continue to lose guys in free agency, you don't sleep on them, especially with their system, the veterans that they have in place, and their veteran manager in Dusty Baker. The Philadelphia Phillies, especially once they get Bryce Harper back, they're going to pick up their pace. They're just 3.5 back of Atlanta right now. The New York Mets, they're 15-12. They're just 3 games behind Atlanta, and then both the Mets and Phillies, I do expect to turn things around. The St. Louis Cardinals, I don't know what it's going to take to get them out of this funk. Maybe a managerial change. I don't know. But nonetheless, I do think that the Cardinals are going to pick it up. And the same thing could be said in the West for both the Padres and Dodgers, as again, they are each the most talented teams in that division. So, what's there to look forward to in May? Number one, the return of Bryce Harper to the Philadelphia Phillies, as he's expected to come back sooner than most people expected. And then looking on the slate of games this week, you got the Pittsburgh Pirates traveling to take on the Tampa Bay Rays. We expected the Rays to once again contend for a playoff spot. We just didn't expect them to be off to the hot start that they've currently gotten. And of course, the Pirates, who knew what Pittsburgh was going to be at this point of the year? They weren't expected to look like this. But then from there, Pittsburgh will host the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend. So that should be an electric series in Western PA. Also, this weekend, you got the Baltimore Orioles traveling to take on the Atlanta Braves. Baltimore snuck up on some people last year. They're not doing it this year, but Baltimore has gotten off to a tremendous start. They're 19-9, and if it wasn't for the hot start that the Tampa Bay Rays currently have, a lot of people would be talking about the Baltimore Orioles. Also, this weekend, the Astros and the Mariners. And you go back to last year's playoff series, Houston did sweep Seattle, but all of those were very close games. The Mariners are right there, and even though Houston is currently not in first place in the AL West, excuse me, this is a scenario where this is still a litmus test for the M's. And then, of course, the Dodgers and Padres set to get it on this weekend. We know about how the Dodgers dominated the National League West last year. We also know about how the Dodgers have dominated the San Diego Padres in recent years. But all of that, of course, went out of the window in the LDS last year when it was the Padres who sent the Dodgers home in 4 games. The Padres are an immensely talented team, and you can make the case that San Diego, on paper at least, probably has a better team than the Dodgers. It's just a matter of who is going to, establish themselves this weekend as both of them look to get things going. But nonetheless, I think the first month of the season has been exciting for a variety of reasons. More stolen bases with the expanded base is rather, excuse me. People getting accustomed to the new pitch clock. The home run, phase. A lot of guys have gotten it going early. The likes of Pete Alonso and Max Muncy, just to name a few at the plate. And then, of course, the pitchers. You look at what Nathan Eovaldi just did to the New York Yankees over the weekend, had a complete game 9 inning contest and a win for Texas. And of course, that shows the Bruce Bochy effect as the veteran manager who helped the Giants win 3 World Series championships last decade rather, is now looking to turn things around for the Texas Rangers. But nonetheless, 1 month is in the books. We got a lot of ways to go for this season, but so far, so good for Major League Baseball. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.